City, Wedding, GA, and man, I'm here today. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Come and have your seat.
British Speedway's golden generation was in the 1970s, where the likes of Collins, Simmons, Wilson, Louis and Lee carried the Union Jack with pride. In 1978, there were many commiserations for Dave Jessup, an engine failure in his opening race costing him dearly at Wembley. But while there was sympathy with Jessup, it overshadowed a fine performance by another Englishman, who pushed the Great Dane Ollie Olsen all the way before settling for silver in what was his only appearance on the big night. Tonight we pay tribute to one of British Speedway's most underrated riders, Gordon Kennett, who passed away yesterday at the age of 70. Gordon was a classy performer who I was very lucky to see in the twilight of his career in the mid-90s, and guess what? He was still a classy performer then. Rest in peace, Gordon, only in Speedway.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Yeah, it's a rider I saw race many a time. Not always my favourite rider. He was, as you say, a classy rider, but he didn't. He wasn't scared to sort of put it about a little bit, as all the best riders
Absolutely, yeah.
do. But being an Eastbourne rider at the time,
Yeah, that probably didn't help, did it?
yeah,
So,
I mean it was a big rivalry between the two clubs.
I didn't realise until I was doing some looking up this morning that he did actually have two short spells at Cradley, which I didn't realise.
I didn't
He had a
know
spell
that.
there in 71, and I think he maybe rode possibly one meeting. Might have been as a guest in 88 apparently, which I didn't realise. But obviously I didn't see him until right at the end of his career. He signed for Wolves in 92, and even then, in the twilight of his career, he was still a very, very good performer who could beat some very, very good riders on his day. Was probably the victim of an unusually ruthless move from Chris Van Straten to drop him when he was on a 10-point average, which effectively finished his career in 94.
Wow.
He'd had a really, really good start to that season, and from reserve, and he ended up I think he ended up on about a 9.5, 10-point average. And riding at number one at that stage, of course, unfortunately, he wasn't able to do that then. So the team change was made, and it was a bit of a surprise. It probably was the right decision, but he was certainly he'd won a lot of friends during his time at Monmouth. He was actually at Monmouth about 2-3 weeks ago. He might even have been on Bank Holiday Monday, and I saw him, and he looked no different to when he was riding for Wolves. I think, by all accounts, he kept himself fit. Obviously, it's well documented. Of course, he had suffered with diabetes for many years, but was still actively, still wasn't actively involved in Speedway in any capacity. But he still watched a lot of Speedway, and he was, by all accounts, working very hard with people to try and get Speedway back into Eastbourne, which of course is the club where he's sort of most connected with. So yeah, very sad news, and in an era, as I say, when we had so many top riders, he was certainly someone who, on his day, was capable of beating the very, very best, and was superb in that 78 World Final. I think he was the only rider that beat Olsen that night. I think his first ever race in the World Final contained Ollie Olsen and Ivan Major, so that was a real baptism of fire in that one, and he won the race. So that was a dream start for him, and he went on all the way to get second place, and of course never quite got to that level again. But very, very sad news. So yeah, rest in peace, Gordon. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of matches over the next few weeks where there'll be tributes paid to him, particularly at the many clubs that he rode for.
Yeah, absolutely, and well deserved as well. We'd love to hear people's memories of Gordon Kennett. I'm going to have to say it, Gordon Kennett. I'm sorry.
Terrible.
Yeah, I know.
You're not going to get it.
Okay. So I'd love to hear people's memories of the great man through the night. If you have any, shove them up on your on the shout box, I should say. Talking of which, have we got any?
Oh, sorry, I'm
yes.
I'll get them up in a second.
I beg your pardon.
Mrs.
So yeah, we'll say hello to everybody on the shout box. Squeaky bum time in the leagues.
Yep, getting into that time. Obviously, starting. I think we probably should start off with the knockout cup final in the Premiership, of course. Obviously, Sheffield held to 6 points against Ipswich in the first leg, so Ipswich, I think, will really fancy their chances. I mean, I saw someone today said it was a commanding lead. I don't think 6 points is a commanding lead at all. Certainly, when you've got an Ipswich team that's got Southampton and Doyle as that's their top end. So yeah, I think for me, looking at that one, probably Ipswich would certainly fancy their chances of getting in. And of course, Ipswich, amazingly, thanks to a complete capitulation from Leicester, are in the playoffs as well. I don't think anybody probably wasn't as surprised that Peterborough won, because if you look at the Peterborough side now, I think if they were in the playoffs, they'd probably win it. They look very, very strong now. It's just unfortunately come too late for them. But they really did. They really tore Leicester to shreds. And after a really good performance from Leicester on the Monday at Monmouth, you certainly would have expected Leicester, maybe not to win, but certainly do enough to get the aggregate point to just get them over the line.
I mean, there's Craig Smith sort of touched on that subject. He said, "Evening, chaps. What do you make of Leicester's huge collapse and falling out of the playoffs? They looked a dead cert for playoffs with Bellevue only 2 months ago. Team changes were a strange move. Getting rid of Harris has cost them massively. Of course, Seymour."
Seymour, he gets everywhere.
Gets
doesn't he?
everywhere. Of course, I want the Aces to make final again, but I'm glad I get to see Emil ride around the NSS again.
I think it was quite ironic, wasn't it? The bomber was in the Peterborough team, of course, that put Leicester out of it. Yeah. I get the impression as well that he was very happy to lose his place at Leicester. So I think
he's not hid that at all.
No, he hasn't. So
I mean, I think that Leicester were a little bit unlucky to catch Peterborough when they caught them, when they were arguably one of the best teams in the league. But also the Nick Morris situation. I mean, what happened immediately after the Nick Morris situation is really where the nail was put in the coffin for Leicester this year, I feel.
Yeah.
They really should have been in there by the time they got to Peterborough.
I would say for Birmingham as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Eddie Kennett is carrying on his legacy, says David James. Is Eddie riding any? It's not riding, is he?
Not at the moment, no.
I think so. Alan Atherton, is Birmingham at threat of not being able to race there next season? I would say that's a yes. There is
definitely a threat at the moment.
I mean, I want to touch on what Nigel Tolley said on the centre green, which was very interesting, I thought.
Yep.
Would it make sense for Wolves, Birmingham and maybe Cradley to look as a joint venture?
It's a nice idea in theory, isn't it? Whether it would be...
Where would you put it?
It would have to be in the middle of all three, wouldn't it? Unfortunately, you've got to find land also. You've got to find somebody who's willing to put the cash in to do it.
And then you've got to find supporters willing to travel.
Yep.
It's
a nice idea in theory, isn't it? You know, the three Midland clubs all being able to run different nights at one place, but it just I think it's sort of pie in the sky a little bit at the moment.
Yeah, I think so. Also, I don't think the BSPA are particularly keen for people to track share.
I think at the moment it's probably a case of cutting off your nose to spite your face with that.
Well, since we're talking about that, obviously Birmingham won against Plymouth last week. It was an entertaining meeting.
It was. I certainly enjoyed my few races that I saw on the centre green. So
it was good to have Terry the track back on the tractor, and the track was much better for it.
Yeah.
But interesting comments by Nigel Tolley in the interval there, talking about a big meeting that he's having and which will secure the future of Birmingham.
He hopes, of course.
And mentioning Phil Morris in the same breath. What did you make of that?
Well, I thought it was interesting that Phil Morris was there, really, because obviously, his role at the moment within British Speedway is the CEO of the Premiership. I've said, I've heard things. I don't want to say them on here because I don't want to be breaking confidence.
Well, I've heard some things as well, so we'll have a little chat afterwards and see what.
Remember to switch the microphone off when that happens. So I think there's cautious optimism at Birmingham. I think certainly in Nigel Tolley, I think Birmingham have got the the right man in charge. I think he's put an awful lot of money into Birmingham, and he's had pretty much every problem thrown at him over the years that he's been there. And I think really the same with the Masons as well. During their stint, although I think in the end it just wore the Masons down. And I think in the end they had to sort of step away from it.
There seems to be a little bit more passion for Birmingham coming from Nigel Tully.
Well, I think the fact that Nigel's local as well, isn't he? I mean, the Masons obviously were based down in Kent Way, weren't they?
Yeah.
So they weren't sort of on the area. I do think you need to sort of be in the local area to sort of know what clubs mean to their supporters, and I think that probably sort of handicapped them a little bit. I know they had Lawrence, who's obviously based in who's based over Willenhall way, I think. So he was obviously as the man on the track, but I think it would have been beneficial for the Masons maybe to have sort of been a bit more of a. I mean, they were there for most meetings. In all honesty, I think there was a certain match against a team up in the northeast that sort of probably was the straw that broke the camel's back for the Masons, wasn't there?
You mean Redcar?
Yeah,
That's just
I think that was
beat about the bush.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I think with Birmingham, I think there's optimism. I think there's obviously Nigel probably knows there's pressure on Birmingham to run, bearing in mind, of course, that next year there's only going to be Birmingham running in the area. Hopefully, it's only going to be for 1 year, but we'll have to wait and see on that one.
Also interesting, his comments in the programme saying about squashing two particular rumours.
Yep.
Rumour number one, he said no, Birmingham won't be in the Premiership. Okay. And rumour number two, he's not buying Leicester.
Yep. I'd not heard that rumour
I
at all,
haven't, no.
to be fair, so.
Yeah. But, so watch this space. I think there is a lot, as you say, a lot of room for optimism with what's going on in Birmingham. Optimism tinged with disappointment with what's happening elsewhere.
Yep.
Losing the likes of Peterborough,
Yep.
Wolverhampton, possibly Edinburgh.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the real squeaky bum time, of course.
Well, this is the frustrating thing, isn't it? Because if you look at, certainly our performance in the World Cup in the summer was superb. It was a really, really brilliant effort to get as close as we did to, on Polish soil as well, against the nation who've been the dominant force in world sport for the best part of 20 years.
One race win or 1 point really away from winning the thing. So
Yeah, I mean, you've got that as a positive, and yet at the moment we're losing all the tracks, which is not a good position to be in. Again, I think while Speedway's in this position where it has to beg, steal, and borrow for stadiums, you're always at the whim of your landlord as to whether he wants you there or not, or whether he wants to sell the land, or whether he just decides, sorry, don't want you here anymore. Nothing you can do about it, unfortunately. It's interesting, really. There's a lot of sort of things going on with Peterborough, which, obviously I think we've seen that the petition that's sort of rather belatedly gone online. I think it's Mick Bratley, of course, who's obviously known at Birmingham, who's put that on. He seems to be fairly bullish about Peterborough's chances, whereas Buster Chapman, well, to be brutally honest, isn't. He's there's a lot. There's a lot of things. It would be it's a crying shame to lose any club, but it certainly would be a crying shame to lose Peterborough because it's one of the best racetracks in the country.
Great racetrack.
It's and from what I can gather, it doesn't look like there's going to be any houses built on it anytime soon. So there's no, to me, there's probably no reason why they couldn't sort of sit down and try and do a deal to.
There's possible wiggle room there.
But that's obviously something that they've decided. No, we're not going to push. So
a few more comments coming up. We should possibly get through some of them. Good evening to Stephen Bradford, by the way. Rich Thomas said Gordon Kennett, of course, had a spell at Swindon, number 8, always gave 100% and such a smooth, stylish rider. Yeah, he was like one of these, what you'd call an armchair rider.
Yeah, very much a white line rider, wasn't he, I think? Which, one of the tracks he rode at was Exeter. You probably couldn't think of a track that was less suited to Gordon Kennett.
That's a white line to try and follow, isn't it? Yeah. Darlington said commanding lead.
Graham Darlington, he said he was a commanding lead. It's 6 points, he's not a commanding lead.
No, it's barely a lead.
Yeah.
Simon Corbett, is Frick a shoe-in guest for Sheffield at Wolves?
I think he would be the logical choice.
Yep, Alan Atherton agrees,
Yep.
definitely, he says. So Mr. Brian Buck says Leicester, Sheffield and Wolves all seem to have gone off the boil a bit in recent weeks. So, yeah, I think that is true. And, you know, could you see Ipswich being a dark horse there all of a sudden?
I could. They've come into the top. They've got into the top four on merit and really, and with a bit of a momentum behind them. I still think Bellevue are probably just about the favourites.
Mm-hmm.
That probably would in some ways would have been the dream final, wouldn't it? Bellevue against Ipswich.
You couldn't think of two more different tracks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but it's interesting because certainly from a Wolves perspective, I mean, we did this last season. We sort of took our foot off the gas once we booked our place in the playoffs, and then when it got to the playoffs, we just couldn't raise our game again. We got absolutely trounced by Sheffield 12 months ago. And it's just to be hoped that we certainly put up a better show than that this time against them.
Well, there's a bit more at stake in a sense for Wolverhampton. That might help in that.
It would be. It's horrible, obviously, that we're going to be going next season, but it would be nice to think that we could. Bittersweet, I think, to think that we could, win a championship and then unfortunately not be able to defend it next year. So,
Peterborough was superb again last night, even without Laguta, Ben Cook, and Tarasenko. The Stars Wolves looked very ordinary.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Imagine what Peterborough would have done had they had that team from day one.
I think they would be favourites to win the league. I really do. They've got a very, very strong team now.
Watch out for Ipswich, which is they're riding well, 7 wins out of 9. I mean, they have. I mean, when it got to the point when it was, you've just got to do it.
Yep,
they did it. Pete Clark says, I can still see Bomber getting us a winner's medal and a wooden spoon.
Wouldn't surprise you.
In all leagues. In the 2 top leagues, I should say. Dave Twine, I had forgot till I looked at 1973 stats that Gordon rode for Oxford Rebels in 1973. I think Cribby remembers that one. Ouch. Hello, what's happened?
It's quite busy, so...
Yeah. No, you need to go down. You've gone past it now. This is good. This is good radio, isn't it?
There we go.
Alan Atherton, what is his role as CEO? Hopefully it's the first step of an independent body.
I would like to think so. I mean, the good thing, as I say, the good thing with Phil, one, he's a Speedway man, and of course at the moment he hasn't got any affiliation with any club.
Any clubs, no.
The only affiliation really is with clubs that he rode for, but that's not the same thing as having a financial interest in any club. I think that's what Speedway needs. It needs somebody to go to sponsors and things like that as to showcase British Speedway rather than a particular club, which I think has been possibly the problem in recent seasons.
Talking about Peterborough closing, Dave Twine says, I saw that the actual land will be left alone for 5 years. Is that true?
Well, it certainly doesn't sound like it's a given that houses are going to be built on it anytime soon, which is going to be really frustrating for Peterborough if it's just sitting there not being used. It's going to be a Coventry situation, isn't it? So where it just sits there, becoming ransacked and fires and break-ins and things like that. You don't really. It would be that's disappointing, and it's disappointing that something hasn't been agreed for them to be able to sort of remain there in the interim, and whilst that happens, look for something a bit more long term in the area. I don't know the geography of the Peterborough area, so I don't know what other options there are for moving.
There seems to be plenty of fields, tracks in fields. I think I've said this before.
Yeah.
JCB the most likely to buy Leicester, says Alan Atherton. That'd be great. I mean, I know he's saying that tongue in cheek, but that would be great for Speedway, for a club, for a company like that to buy a club. Alan Atherton, nothing will happen for 3 years at least at Peterborough, and the track's been ruined at Peterborough, says Alan Atherton. I haven't seen it.
Last couple of meetings I've seen there have been pretty good, to be fair. Okay. I know there was a lot of criticism of the Peterborough track, certainly early in the season. Well, I think probably it didn't help the fact that they had a poor site and they were struggling. So,
best wishes to Charles Wright on a nasty crash in Poland on Sunday. He misses out again in the playoffs for last season. But you're okay there.
Yeah,
but Aces did manage to win without him. Lidsey, Brennan, Bloodhorn, Bailey can take our rides. Yeah, I mean, he's had such a great season. As
He
well.
has. Yeah, I still think he was very unlucky not to be given a shout and given the pick for the World Cup squad. Although Adam Ellis, in fairness, did do pretty well in the final.
Did you read Carl Bickley's comments in the Speedway Star? I did not. You?
No, I haven't seen it. I've seen bits of things that he said.
Seems that not riding during COVID has hindered his progress, along with a bit of depression caused by things in his private life. He said he lost his love for the sport by being dropped by Berwick, then Seymour.
Yes, everyone.
Then Newcastle closing, and then Edinburgh looking to buy his contract from Bellevue, making him an asset for them, then sacking him after 5 meetings. He was one of Britain's promising young talents only a couple of years ago, and now at only 21 and lost completely to the sport.
I rated Carl Bickley very, very highly a few years ago. Very good rider, nice guy as well. You know, when I was doing work for Rerun at Perry Bar, I interviewed him a couple of times. Always very approachable, you know, and spoke a lot of sense when he was doing interviews. It would be sad to see somebody like him, you know, lost to the sport, and you know we've had this few too many times in recent years, haven't we? Young riders that have sort of looked like they had the world at their feet, and they just haven't taken it, and things have sort of gone on away from them in their personal life.
I'll laugh at this saying, is there anything in place to support any rider with mental health issues or someone to calm upon?
I thought there was.
I thought there was as well. I'm sure the VSPA did something, but of course if the riders don't use it, if it doesn't get it could have got lost. I don't know anything about it, but there are plenty of organisations out there that, you know, and I urge anybody having any problems of that sort, Speedway rider, Speedway supporter, whoever, talk to somebody. That's the beginning of getting better. It sounds simple, but it isn't. But yeah, just talk to somebody, and once you go down that road, you're on the road to getting better. Sorry, personal experience there. Fred Brown, can you give a shout out to the Hurry family, as Carl Hurry, who was a photographer at Redcar, passed away peacefully on Sunday after a long illness. He was a friend of mine of over 40 years and will be missed. He followed Middlesbrough Redcar Speedway teams for a lot of years through thick and thin. We'll miss you, big guy. There you go. I think we've done that for you.
Rest in peace.
We shouldn't laugh at the jokes that we read before we sell them out, should we really? Rich Thomas says JCB will give good foundations to Leicester. Nice one.
I think he needs to stop digging, to be honest.
Alan Atherton says there are definitely plots in Peterborough, and they're definitely being looked at. Brian Buck talking about Carl Hurry. It's always sad to hear of a long-time supporter passing on. Even though I didn't know the bloke and never knowingly met up with him, I send my best wishes to his family and friend.
Yep.
So say all of us. Pete Clark does. Oh, we should talk about. This
was a bizarre incident, wasn't it? Really.
Yeah. Pete Clark, does British Speedway need to look again at tyre safety? Carl Howarth may agree with me. Well,
you were close to it, weren't you? So, well, closer than I was, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, so we had the first heat, and Carl Howarth was in the lead by a fairly long way, and all of a sudden, it looked like a chain had snapped, but he got a blowout on his rear tyre. So Heat 2 came out, and their manager, whose name escapes me,
Mark Phillips,
thank you, came out and just stood in the middle of the track
with a red flag
that he nicked off the guy on the second bend who I've spoke to, and told him he's got the sack because the flag marshal should never relinquish his flag. But anyway,
wasn't you, was it? So.
No, it wasn't me. No. Yeah, and he just stood there, and basically it had to be stopped. They couldn't start the race, and he was protesting that. Now this is what I've heard. I don't know whether this is, but he was protesting that the tyres that we'd got were either a bad batch or they'd been left out in the sun, and that had in some way done something wrong to them, baked them. I think was what I heard, which of course that's how tyres are created.
Yeah.
But anyway, and so he was protesting and had the referee come down to have a look. Now, I heard some comments of what the referee said, which were quite funny, but I don't think I'm allowed to say them. But obviously, the referee restarted the match, and as far as I'm aware, there was no more problems with any of the tyres, unless somebody knows different, of course. That was it. It was, but I've never seen that before.
There have been issues with tyres in recent years, haven't there, with quite a few riders. I think it's something that certainly the BSBL need to look at if there's tyres that are, badly flawed. Because at the end of the day, whatever anybody, we all love to watch our sport, we all love to see great races, but the most important thing ultimately is paramount is the safety of the riders.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be fair to Carl Howarth, I saw the tyre and it was a great big...
Yeah, I saw a photograph that he put on Twitter of it. Or X. Is it X now it's called?
I might even have a piece of the tyre in my bag. Yeah. But anyway... But there was no more issues. Again, as far as I'm aware. I think that the idea was that the tyre was going to be sent back to ANLAS for them to look at it and see if they can work out what went wrong in case there was a bad batch or there is something wrong.
Well, they need to be looking at trends, don't they? It's like we've said before, haven't we, about crashes at particular tracks. We need to look at trends as to where on the track they happen and what sort of conditions they happen in. I don't know whether anybody at the BSBR does any of this, but to me it should be absolutely...
We should be collecting data what was the condition of the track, what was the weather. I mean, particularly around crashes of any description. I've said this for a long time, that we do very little in this sport to look at information about trying to make things safer for riders, and we just don't do it.
Well, I know it was always a frustration for you. The quote that Graham Drury used to come up with quite a few times, that injuries are part and parcel of the sport.
Part of the sport, yeah. So, but people used to say in Formula One, death's a part and parcel of the sport.
But not
they
now.
Ain't now.
No,
because they did something about it. I mean, a driver's life expectancy was something like 4 or 5 years of racing before they could possibly die. I mean, it was horrendous. But
admittedly, deaths in Speedway have sort of tailed off from what they were at one time. I always remember, I don't know whether you ever went to the Speedway Hall of Fame at Donington Park. It was only there for about 3 years. I went there once, and there was most poignant thing, there was a big wall at the back, and it listed every single Speedway rider that had lost their life racing, and I think the number on it was about 110. It was quite
a lot.
Because I always remember, because I remember
just in this country, or
that's overseas as well.
Yeah.
Because I always remember, I don't know whether you've ever read Eric Gunnarson's book,
No.
My Two Lives. The first line in his book is, I was so nearly 111.
Right.
After his crash at Bradford in '89. It's
and he really was, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you think back to the 50s and the 60s. Sometimes you could have 2 or 3 riders being killed in one season. He was just seen as, well, that's how it goes.
Okay, can you just go back to where we was on because interesting. Yeah, the ref's phone wasn't working apparently. I don't know if it's true or not. I've got no information. But apparently the ref's phone wasn't working, which is why he put the red flag out, which, if that's true, I think that was a fairly reasonable thing for him to do. But he has been fined. So Craig Schlein says, tyres are a real problem. Watch this space.
It does seem to be becoming a bit of a trend, doesn't it, with tyres blowing or disintegrating. Something they've got to look at.
Brian says, and you was aware of this, you was part of this, we had a party of 16 newcomers come to Perry Bar for the Plymouth match last Wednesday. They chose a good match to come to be fair. They had never seen Speedway before and were spellbound and thrilled by the action. It was a real pleasure to show them around.
Well, what one of them had, because he years ago, he was a season ticket holder at Coventry. He didn't, I was talking to him, he didn't realise Coventry weren't running anymore. So it was quite a shock to him when I told him that Brandon is now in a state of disrepair, waiting for, someone waiting for the bulldozers to either rebuild it as a speedway track and stock car track, or for someone to plonk houses on it. But no, they really did enjoy themselves. They and it was great. I mean, that was the first time I've actually been onto the centre green at a speedway meeting for at least 20 years. I've never been. I was on the centre green at Perry Bar for a practice about 3 or 4 years ago because one of the flag marshals, whose name temporarily escapes me, didn't turn up, so I had to stand in for him.
That possibly would have been me.
There was a bloke on the first bend. I can't remember his name now. So.
That's me, folks.
Yeah. Never been so cold at a speedo meeting in my life. It was freezing.
Now you know why I wasn't there. Rich Thomas says they've done something about safety in rugby and it's spoiling the game as we know it. I think that is a little bit true, but
you've got to strike a happy medium. I'm afraid.
I think it's more about how they are enforcing those rules in rugby at the moment. Let's not talk about that. But that sending off, that red card was not a red card. You don't know what I'm talking about, but not to worry. 96 deaths in Speedway between 1927 and 2016.
I think there was more on that board. I've got a photograph of it somewhere. I might, if I can find it, I might put it on the Facebook page. But it was quite sobering looking at it and counting how many riders there were. And this was 93. I went there, so we've had some riders that have lost their lives since then. Of course, obviously one is Lee Richardson. So
yeah, exactly. Craig Smee, is the tyre issues being caused by pressure tyres set at, for example, if the tyre pressure is too low and softer or too hard and firm and they are being ripped up by the track because they're underinflated or overinflated? The first thing is they do have those tyre pressures really low in those to get grip. But they have got a working sort of, I can't remember what they are now. I think it might be 9 at the bottom end and 16 at the top, or something like that, PSI. So that they have to be within, and I think that the machine examiners will check that, but they can't check every single one for every single race. It would be just, you couldn't do it. There were rumours at the track, and I'm not going to say what those rumours were, but they were around tyre pressure. I don't know whether it's true or whether it's not. I've got no way of knowing. I think if there's a doubt about tyres, you have to look at it. That's it, really. Shall we go a little bit further, or have we reached the bottom yet?
There we go.
Pete says you're welcome back on the centre anytime.
You'll regret saying that, Pete.
So Craig Smith asked how many of those 96 deaths have been in the last 10 years. And Craig Smith says 3. Rampola was the last one in 2016. So it certainly seems to have improved.
Yep.
Certainly seems to have improved.
I think we ought to sort of touch on the situation that we had with the Plymouth-Berwick match, haven't we? Obviously, the SCB released a statement yesterday. Read it to you now. Following the anti-doping test that took place at Plymouth Speedway on the 5th of September, the SCB have received the results from the laboratory of the tests from both Mr Richie Worrell and Mr Steve Boxall. Both tests have proved positive for a banned substance, therefore breaching SCB regulation 0.18.2 breach of rules, an anti-doping offence that is the occurrence of the anti-doping rule violations, the presence of a prohibited substance or markers in the body. Mr Worrell and Mr Boxall's SCB registrations have been suspended for a period of 30 days with immediate effect pending an SCB disciplinary court hearing. Mr Worrell's clubs Leicester and Plymouth have now completed their 2023 fixtures. Mr Boxall's Championship club Berwick Bandits have now also completed their 2023 fixtures. However, Mr Boxall's National League club Berwick Bullets will be entitled to a facility during this suspension period.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot we can say about that until it's all... But it's unusual for that to happen once in a season. It's happened 3 times.
Yep, it has. Which is concerning.
It's, more than a little worrying. Brian Buck says very best wishes to the Safe Coventry Stadium group at the Planning Inspectorate appeal next week. All of us will be hoping for a successful outcome and the speedy return of the bees. And I think
you can actually watch it online as well. I know that you are able to go, but I think it's going to last quite a long time. So it's probably a lot of it's going to be quite tedious. But certainly I'll be dipping in and out and seeing what things are happening, it would be. I think that would be the boost that everybody in Speedway needs, wouldn't it, to see Coventry Speedway back at Brandon.
Just to have the hint of them coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to have that chance to go to Coventry and beat them.
Yeah.
But that's what that is what it's about.
Absolutely, yeah.
And,
It's about there's nothing beats a local derby. There was a historic rivalry, wasn't it? Was between Coventry and Birmingham for many years.
Fred Graham says, keeping positive comments going, crowds at most tracks that I've seen on TV or BSN coverage. I must say, I was surprised that the Plymouth match, Birmingham versus Plymouth, actually there was a much better crowd than I was expecting it to be, given previous meetings and stuff that had gone on. So that's, news, reasons to be cheerful.
Yep.
Thank you. Keep it. Most tracks that I've seen on TV or BSN coverage and live matches at Glasgow and Redcar recently have been very good. Shows the fans are there. As you say, we all need to keep banging the drum on how good our sport is. If we roll over, it will disappear.
I've not seen as many of the matches on BSN as I would have liked, but their coverage has really improved tenfold from it. It was a bit sort of erratic at the start, wasn't it? But it's certainly been a huge improvement. It's very, very professional, and obviously with my club not running next year, I'm tempted to probably get a season ticket for BSN next year and hopefully see a lot more Speedway and sort of keep in touch with it as well.
GP Saturday, not much interest, plenty of injuries, says Craig Schlein.
Simon Corbett said it actually, by the way.
Okay. He keeps moving up and down. I can't keep on.
Neil, the screen. Actually.
So Craig Schlein says tubeless sidewalls, compound pressure, weather, temperature, all a part to play. But tyres need to be safe. That's it's fundamental. Brian says, I noticed Troy Batchelor has improved with his points in a big way since you slated him off the other week.
I did walk past his van and there was actually a photograph of you on a dartboard.
I didn't think. I thought. Okay.
He rode very well. To be fair,
he did. Yeah, absolutely.
It's frustrating because it shows that he can do it.
Yeah, he did ride. He did ride great. But hey ho, it is.
Of course, we have got the penultimate GP, of course, in Voyens on Monday. Of course, on Saturday even. Of course, Ty Woofington and Magic Ionoski. We'll send our best wishes to Magic as well. Really nasty crash that he had over the weekend. They've both been withdrawn from the Danish GP on Voyens due to injury. Czech rider Jan Kovac and German star Kai Hülkenberg are both called into the event, making their first GP appearances outside of their home country. Woofington underwent surgery after suffering a broken hand in the British Grand Prix at Cardiff, and despite intense rehabilitation work following the operation, the penultimate GP of 2023 comes too soon. Meanwhile, Ionoski sustained a broken ankle in a freak accident during Rochelev's PGE Extraliga playoff semi-final, second leg at home to Torrent on Sunday. His clutch malfunctioned at the tapes just before the riders were placed under starters' orders, with Ionoski's bike looping and landing on his ankle. He underwent successful surgery in Poznan on Monday and has his sights set on a rapid return, although that will not come in Voyens. With first substitute rider Andrei Lebedov of Latvia already in the lineup as a replacement for the injured Danish star Anders Thompson, second reserve Kovac steps in. It's going to have to go some, I think, to be better than Cardiff, I think, Voyens.
I mean, it might be better in the sense that got a good chance of crowning a new world champion.
Yeah, it looks. I think to all intents and purposes, everybody knows. We've probably known since about May that Bottas Smiley was gonna win it.
The good thing is people seem to be catching him up now.
Catching him up, or was he maybe?
He was slowing down.
He certainly wasn't anywhere near his best in Cardiff. Although, as I've said, once he got into the semi-final, you certainly wouldn't have backed against him winning it, because he's proven over the years that when he needs to, he can pull a big performance out.
Alan Atherson, if what's being bandied about regarding the banning is true, they don't deserve to be in the sport. I think we can't really say much about that. And Rich Thomas says, sign of the times, seems normal now to smoke something or shove it up your nose. You wondered where I was going then, wasn't it? Well, you say that, but I think back in the 70s and 80s, I think it could possibly have been even worse.
Oh, crikey, yeah.
Certainly with the American riders. I mean, they've...
Well, I remember going to an evening at the Cleveland with my hero Ronnie Corrie about 5 years ago, and Ronnie always made the point that he always felt that the Americans were, considering it was always a random test, it seemed very convenient that it was always Americans, particularly two brothers who, of course, one of them, of course, had a spell at Birmingham, as you know, because unfortunately,
Jellyman.
It's fair to say they had a reputation, didn't they, whether it was unfair or not, for liking the partying a little bit too much. Certainly on Kelly's side, Sean was probably.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's openly admitted to it, didn't he?
Well, I think Sean has completely turned his life around now. I think he still drinks, but he knows now when to stop. So I think certainly learned his lesson. I think, to be fair, I think Kelly learned his lesson, but unfortunately the damage had already been done for Kelly. So yeah, but certainly there was always a thing with the American riders, wasn't there? And you think back to when Peter Collins nearly won the world final in '77 with a broken leg. I mean, I think he said that some of the things that he took would now be on the ban list. You wouldn't be able to ride with them. So, but
Brian Bucket would be useful if someone knowledgeable.
certainly not one of us three. So.
Could explain exactly what the problem with the tyre was last Wednesday. Was it a case of, it blew? Was it a case of one suspect tyre amongst a batch of new ones, or was Mr. Phillips complaining about something more sinister? I think that's probably closer to the truth, or he might have been worried about something more sinister. There have been a few issues with the analyst tyres this season, but I thought that these had been resolved. Okay, I haven't heard any problems about the analyst for a while, but...
That seems to be the name that was trendy, wasn't it, analyst tyres?
And Pete Clark says Troy Batchelor has had a wheelie better week. That's beneath you, Pete. I'm sorry, mate.
You're not coming back on here again, so...
Reginald Barker, how many promotions have gone into schools doing... New comments?
Oh, sorry.
Doing lost leader family... doing lost leader family tickets free for arranged pre-season challenge matches, get sponsors for races, etc. Riders do it free one-off meetings. So much more promotions could do and it can do. Regard 75 Fen Tiger original fan and Witches fan. So, Reg, I think that's...
Yep.
So
riders have done it in the past, haven't they? They've gone into schools and...
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you got to say about that is riders don't belong to the club.
No.
They are...
Self-employed.
Self-employed, thank you very much. They're self-employed. So, they're not going to do that for nothing, nor should they.
No.
And also they have commitments and, racing in Poland or Denmark or whatever it is, or jobs for in a lot of cases, of course.
Yeah. Particularly with Poland, because there seems to be a trend in Poland where if a club wants you somewhere, you've got to be there, whether you've got other plans or not. So
that's that. I know it's interesting about the free tickets thing. I think I might have mentioned this on the show before, but I'm going back during when the Drury's were here. We and my lads were at a school. Marston Green School means nothing to anybody. And they had a summer fete, and I asked if I could have a couple of free tickets, and they said, yeah, and they've used it in the raffle. Yep. And everybody there was going, I heard the whisper go around, well, I hope I get the tickets. I hope I get the Speedway tickets. Yeah. These were people that didn't even know what a Speedway was, but they all wanted
the Speedway
tickets.
You won them.
I did not. I did not. I do know the person that won them, and they were more than happy, and they did come along and so on. Do they still come now? No. Did they come for that one match? Did they? Yes.
This is the problem, isn't it? It's
It's
like years ago when Lakeside did a thing where they let everybody in for free. Loads of people came, but the vast majority of them didn't come again. I think they went through a stage as well where they allowed free admission to anybody that was in the Armed Forces. I think it was for Armed Forces Day. They did that a couple of times and had big crowds in, but nobody really took them up on it again.
No.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Keeping them in.
So
don't let them out.
But I mean, but however, let's not be too negative on that. You've always got to be trying to get new people in because, like those guys that you saw, will they come again? Well, there's a likelihood that they'll come again.
Yep.
Because they really enjoyed it.
I believe they were from Lichfield way, so
that's within range, really.
We ought to go on to our...
Yeah, I was going to say, we need to push on, really.
Oh, gosh, yeah, I didn't realise what the time was.
It's just flown by, actually. Just flown by. I've got the tables up somewhere.
Okay, so thank you to everybody for all the comments. If we get a chance to go through the rest of them, we will.
Yep.
But sorry if we don't. Time.
We'll try and whiz through this.
Yeah, here's the Nigel Pearson Prediction League. Come on, that's 2 weeks on the trot.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
got that right now.
Right teeth in there.
Yeah.
Simon Corbett, he's gone 3 points clear.
Wow. My God.
You've got the address, haven't you? Ready to...
We need this guy needs to be handicapped next season.
Well, to be fair, at the start of May, he was about 20th.
Yeah.
To give him his due, he's really
he's done well.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, can't complain. Mike, the lowest
of the low.
presenter of all time, I think that could be. He'll get a special prize for that.
My customary position, I think.
Yeah.
Right, shall we go for it? Shall we do it?
Yep.
I believe.
Obviously, I did post the fixtures on Saturday, but of course we have had some additions with the scheduling of playoff matches, particularly in the championship. So some of these fixtures you may not have seen on the post. So we'll go through them. Start off on Wednesday, tomorrow night. Poole against Scunthorpe in the playoff Group A.
I'm going to say it's me to go first. Poole by 12.
Poole by 14.
All by 16.
Okay. Next up in Group B is Oxford against Glasgow. That'll be a tasty one.
Oxford versus Glasgow. It's up to you, Matt.
Oxford by 4.
Oxford by 10.
Oxford by 6.
Okay. Premiership Knockout Cup second leg of the final on Thursday. Ipswich against Sheffield.
And that's up to
Isn't it?
you, yeah.
Ipswich by 4. Can't say Ipswich.
You just said it. I'm going to say Ipswich by 6.
I thought you were going to say that. Nothing to do with the scoreline in the first leg.
not
But
at
I'm
all.
going to go the same thing. It wouldn't surprise me. Okay. Next up on Thursday, Peterborough against Kings Lynn in the Premiership.
Peterborough by 18.
Peterborough by 22.
Peterborough by 20.
Okay. On Friday in the Championship playoff Group A, Edinburgh against Scunthorpe.
Mm-hmm. Edinburgh by 2. Oh, it wasn't my go, it's your go.
Scunthorpe by 6.
Up by 10.
I'm still saying Edinburgh by 2.
Okay. Then on Saturday in the NDL, Workington against Kent.
Dun, 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 dun. And that's up to you, dear boy.
Is it? Kent by 4.
Workington by 6. Seems to be my favourite number tonight.
I'll go Workington by 10.
Got that one wrong then.
Okay. Next up, also in the NDL, Berwick against Bellevue.
Bellevue by 4.
Bellevue by 8.
Bellevue by 10.
Okay. Okay, then on Sunday in the Championship playoff Group A, Scunthorpe against Edinburgh.
It's up to you, Matt.
Scunthorpe by 12.
Scunthorpe by 10.
Scunthorpe by 14.
Okay. Then the Premiership playoffs, they start on Monday. First leg, Bellevue against Ipswich. What a way to start.
Where?
So it's amazing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Bellevue by 6.
Do you know, I'm going to say that as well.
Can't go.
Ipswich by 2.
Interesting. Where? Okay. That really would put the cat amongst
And the last one
pigeons.
in the Group B of the playoff championship on Tuesday is Glasgow against Redcar.
This is the last one.
Yeah.
Glasgow by 14.
Glasgow by 10.
Let's go by 12.
Okay.
Yep, so put your predictions up. Obviously, as I say, that post on Saturday was put up before a lot of these were scheduled, so if you've missed any of them, please post them. Don't post them after the meetings have finished. That's not...
Yeah. This would seem an opportune time to mention that we're having a break.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're having a break because I'm going on a fact-finding mission. I'm going to have a look at the Speedway in Mexico for the next 3 weeks. So I'm really excited by that.
And I'm going to watch the Speedway in Turkey.
Okay.
They do a lot of it over there, apparently.
When I said look far and wide for a sight for walls, I didn't mean that far.
I might see a few Bellevue fans, I guess.
And then we're going to come back and round off the season, aren't we?
We're going to come back and round off the season. We'll see. Yeah, after the 3 weeks, see where we are, who's won, and all of that, and we'll possibly discuss a little bit more about what we're going to start next season with. Hopefully, this live show.
Good. Yeah,
So, yeah.
There'll be a few. Obviously, we'll probably have a few things decided by the time we're back, won't we? So,
Yeah, I would have thought so. So. It's just the way it's worked this year, folks. So, apologies.
That was quite clever for you, booking holidays in the playoff term, wasn't it? Because
what are you saying?
that sort of suggested you didn't think Birmingham would be figuring. So.
There again. I'm going back a couple of years ago. We missed quite a lot of shows due to weather, as I remember. So, it wasn't too bad the last couple of seasons.
Yeah. What you're saying is you haven't been able to afford to go on holiday as much.
I mean, there was COVID as well.
Yes. So, do you want to go back up and we'll catch up on the last few comments before we can? We've got 5 minutes, haven't we? Okay, I'm just picking up from one but just above it. There we go. Be interesting to see if Emil and Laguta get picks and are brought back into the GPs. Think it would make it a more even playing field. Sadly, think it could be at the expense of Ty, Dudek or Mickelson. That's the problem.
I think Ty's a big threat to lose his place. Okay, we've talked about his record as a 3-time world champion, but he's he hasn't been winning Grand Prix for a good few years now. He hasn't been close to winning the World Championship for a good few years either. So, and with Robert Lambert, Robert Lambert's obviously not completely settled in the top 6 as of yet. Dan Bewley's sort of a bit more stable, though I think he's still got a little bit of work to do. He's probably may well be the fall guy. Patrick Duga, of course, obviously Poland. We've got a raft of riders now for Poland, so he might possibly be on the threat.
And he's
as well.
not had a great season, has he?
He rode well at Cardiff, but to be fair, he always rides well at Cardiff. It's I wouldn't have been surprised if he'd have won there because he seems to have a knack of doing well at Cardiff.
Nigel, we said it before, but Cardiff rode so well.
Yeah,
it was a nice track. Rich Thomas, Nigel Wagstaff had his faults as a promoter, but he went out to promote his clubs, schools, fights, etc. Pushed the Speedway big time around Oxford. I think I can only talk from personal experience. I think Birmingham have done quite a good job of doing that. I mean, just I can't go out the door without seeing Birmingham Speedway on the back of a bus.
Yeah,
it's so they're certainly been trying. Fred Garan, can I say the atmosphere at Ashfield on Friday was amazing. The riders from both teams, Glasgow and Oxford, put on a belter of a meeting. Vadim Tarasenko had one of the best debuts I've seen for Glasgow Tigers. If you get the chance, watch it on replay on the SM. One of the riders I believe we was trying to sign, by the way.
Yeah, he's been a revelation, hasn't he? He's certainly made a big impression at Peterborough.
Yeah.
Again, we've seen a lot of the top teams are providing some great racing in the championship. It's just unfortunate that there's just such a big gulf now between the teams at the top and the teams at the bottom.
It's got to be something that they sort out. I'm going to leave the last word to Pete Clark. I think I should do. I've enjoyed the last hour better than laying sheets and tyres. Amen to that. Amen to that. Right, well, as I say, we've got 3 minutes to go, so we'll wrap it up now. We will see you again in 3 weeks. Please remember where we are.
Yep, we will be carrying on putting predictions on every week as well.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So keep those going. Take care, everyone. Enjoy your Speedway. If you're involved in the playoffs, good luck. And see you in 3 weeks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Speedway Tavern, what's the